Welcome back to the Compound Podcast. This is episode 234. 234 of the Compound Podcast, presented by Parse Rum. I love Parse. You love Parse. Go to Binny's. Get your Parse Rum. It's the perfect time of year to drink Parse. Dakota is playing golf today. He said he's taking a full water bottle of Parse on the golf course. He said that. This episode, as with all the episodes, is on Marquee Sports Network. Dakota, do you have a response to the full water bottle? Is it 2 water bottles?
It's 1 water bottle, but you know what I did buy today? I sent it to Scott and Zack earlier. First eggnog of the year. Very excited. Might throw some Parse in there. Who knows?
Parse eggnog. Go ahead, Zach. Yeah.
Is it too warm to have eggnog right now?
No such thing. It could be 95 degrees and I'll chug eggnog.
No,
when we're in Florida,
I know you would.
When we're in Florida, I was called out by another friend, Mark Huberman. He'll be pumped. We said his name. He said, I won't drink eggnog at Zach's bachelor party. I said, I promise you that if there's eggnog there, I will drink eggnog.
You won't. I know you won't.
So good.
Are you like packing that in your suitcase? How's that going to go?
Get it.
Gonna get
Bring that through TSA.
They got that everywhere. Yeah, that's legal, right?
That's legal. Like it's illegal.
Well, it's liquid. You can't check liquids. Come on.
You can put it in you can put it in your checked.
Ooh, I might have to. That probably won't stay cold. That'll be
Are you checking a
gross.
bag?
It's going to be warm eggnog that's been sitting in a luggage carrier underneath the plane
Hey,
for
if
like
he's-
20 hours.
If he says he likes it as much as he does, by all means, you have to do it. By any
Are there
you
no
risk
grocery
there.
stores in Miami? Can't you just
Can
buy
we,
a...
buy some?
That's
in Florida?
the move, Tom. I'm gonna have
Do
to
they
stop.
sell
at the
eggnog
grocery
in
store.
Florida? Is the
They
real
have to.
question.
The whole world wants eggnog. They have to.
You're up there. It's pretty cold up there in the sky, so it'll under the plane. It'll stay nice and cold.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. You're gonna be fine.
The only
Nature's
fear is
refrigerator.
I'm only checking my golf clubs, and I don't want it like exploding on my golf clubs. That would, I got to go beat Zach.
Yep, good point.
Dakota.
We have friend of the pod, Scott Effross, joining us. Thank you, Scott, for your
Hello.
time.
Every time we have Scott on, we always just kind of talk and like he talks, and then we're like, oh yeah, by the way, Scott's here.
Hey,
Scott's just another host of the pod. What are you drinking coffee right now, Scott?
I am drinking coffee. I'm drinking coffee wearing my, for the listeners at home, it's Ian's, it's Ian's anniversary. I don't know if that's too much information, but I said I'd wear something nice, and I decided to wear my best Cleveland Cavaliers jersey. I don't know if you guys can fully, yeah.
Scott,
Yeah,
somebody actually just phoned in and asked, how many minutes have you watched this year of the Cleveland Cavaliers?
legally or illegally? Because legally speaking, I can't watch any because there's blackouts, so that's annoying.
Don't get Ian going on that because he gets going on
Blackouts
that
are
about
annoying,
MLB.
aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, Cleveland Cavaliers 15-0. That's the only sports team in Cleveland right now. I don't think there's another team playing or anything. So we're just going to ignore that. So Ian, big week actually, Thursday. He doesn't know what's happening Thursday.
The day before Friday.
Oh, Brown Steelers.
Yeah,
Brown Steelers. Steelers got the Ravens this week, right? They
that's
beat them.
right. 6 field
Yep.
goals.
Steelers are looking great.
They're
Really
looking great,
excited about
yep.
that team. The Bears maybe had a toughie. We won't talk about it. And really like the jersey, Scott.
Thank
Really
you.
awesome. If you want
Are
to
you
talk about
gonna say-
blackouts, we can get into that.
Are you gonna tell him thank you for wishing you a happy anniversary?
Yeah, thank you. It is my anniversary. I'm working, as you can see, on my anniversary because I care so much about you guys and this pod.
can't call this working. You're chopping
We're
it up with
chopping.
your friends. Sorry, your coworkers. You said we're your coworkers.
I
not
mean, you
friends.
guys treat me as a coworker. You make it very clear that I'm a colleague and a coworker. So this is work. Keep it
That's
professional.
Sometimes you just got to look in the mirror, man. And see what the root of it is from. Okay.
They keep you around to foot the Bills.
We will keep it very professional.
I have a game to start. What is your favorite for Zach and Dakota? What is your favorite part of Ian's anniversary? Mine was Dakota screaming, "Here we go!" at everybody at the entire wedding.
I was doing that with Rizzo, Lester, all those guys walking
Screaming
around.
at everybody.
I was not sober. Put it that way.
What a fun time that was 1 year ago.
I think my
today.
favorite part was when we left the church to go back to the hotel where the dinner was, and all the roads were blocked off because of a parade, and we had to walk through a parade to get back to the hotel to be able to go to the wedding.
That was awesome.
That's a
That was
good
part of it.
That actually was like a great story. Now it's like
Great
this
part
was
of the story.
incredible.
We'll never forget it.
No,
Yep,
Congrats
my-
to Ian and Julie.
Yeah.
my
congrats.
favorite part was just how awesome my wife is. Marry my wife. Really
good answer.
Uh,
Good
Yes,
answer.
yes.
Good
She's
answer.
definitely gonna
She's
listen to
a
this,
she's
so
a listener
definitely hear
too, right? So she'll hear
Yeah,
it.
she listens every week.
Yep. Every week. She's
Right.
on it.
Do you think she's listened to one single episode?
Definitely not.
Did Julie subscribe?
Yeah. She likes, subscribes, and resubscribes.
That's all you can ask.
Yep.
That's
Every week. Called support. Scott, do you want to walk us through when the playoffs started, where you were and kind of how that all went as you were preparing, readying, and then kind of how the World Series, where you were for the World Series?
Yeah. Each team has like a group of guys basically once the AAA season ends and the playoffs begin. Once your team is bound for the playoffs, they have like a stay ready group. The locations are kind of spread throughout different places. Ours was in Tampa originally, but with the rain coming through in sequential weeks, it kind of had to be moved to New York. So during the playoffs, we were in New York, for the entire month of October, staying ready, kind of just doing our work. There was like a group of 8 to 12 of us at any given point. And we were just kind of staying ready, throwing bullpens, doing live BPs. The team would go on the road. We kind of, be able to do live BPs at home. We were just kind of staying ready in case, something happened or a roster change was needed. And then
How often were you throwing live?
I threw like one a week, one every 5 days or so. I think I threw 3 total and then like 3 or 4 bullpens. So like you're keeping your arm moving during that time. Once the World Series started, the group got pared down a little bit. So I was able to travel with the team to LA. Again, if something happens, it's easier to go with the team to LA and kind of experience it from the dugout there. Came back home, was in the dugout for the home games. So definitely very cool, different experience. I was going to say that like I don't spend much time in the dugout normally as a reliever. So you're
different world down there, isn't it?
I was kind of following like DJs and like some of the starters like lead on like where to sit to be like kind of like asking like where do I go to be out of the way? I don't want to like interrupt everything. So so that was fun, just being able to kind of like experience like kind of the big moments throughout the series in the dugout.
That was like even playing in Toledo, Zach, how there was no bullpen. Like when you're a reliever, you're just not used to it. And it's like, okay, the last thing I want to do is get in Aaron Judge's way when he's ready to go hit. Like, how do I stay out of everybody's way and not like bother them?
Pitchers or relievers say that all the time. Like how much of a different environment, how much of a different like vibe it is in the dugout. Like, I'll be one to say like the dugout is kind of depressing sometimes. Like, hitters are coming back. They're pissed off for them. Like, unless obviously you're winning, it's an enjoyable place, but like there's always at least 1 or 2 guys going through it. And, I think the good teams do a really good job of masking that where, hey, you're picking somebody up, you're having good conversation in there. Everyone's kind of engaged, but there's like 410 feet away opposed to 15 feet away. It's a different game, man. It really is.
And like
I was talking to, sorry, go ahead, Dakota.
No, you go. You're the guest.
You're the guest, man.
Yeah. I thought it was just part of the crew.
Yeah, you're
a little bit of both.
Let's not get too carried away.
Let's not. Okay, go. I was talking. I can't remember who, but it might have been like Leiter. He came in after an inning, and it's a completely different atmosphere. Like watching the game in the dugout after you're pitching, because like you said, Zach, you're so far. Even if you're sitting outside in the bullpen, like you're not like in the game, and like the Yankee Stadium dugouts are like they're pretty tight. Like especially when you have like a handful of guys who are just like there that aren't normally sitting there like myself. You're kind of on, and like you said, like you just got to stay positive and like kind of like I was trying to do my best to be like stay in tune of the game and be respectful of like what guys are like need to do and not be in the way. But it was definitely a cool experience. But yeah, it's a completely different watching experience because you're so much more zoned in. Like you don't like lose track in the bullpen. Like you still get, but you're like also like preparing.
Yeah,
and,
you're
like,
doing your own
mentally.
stuff.
You're thinking a little bit less about like the acts. What'd you say?
You lose track a little. I mean, I've like there's times you look
up. Oh yeah,
like,
sometimes.
Like if you're down that day, you're like, oh, it's the 6th inning. Like that's crazy.
But correct. But if you're yes. But in like a playoff game like that, like you're kind of thinking like, where's my opportunity to pitch? Like where's my lane? Like did it pass me already? Like you're kind of like looking less at the game and more thinking about like what do I need to do to like prepare myself to go get out this guy or that guy. So like it's in the dugout, you're just watching like I mean, I wasn't on the roster, so like you're just watching each pitch and like you're so engaged to like, I think he's going to throw this pitch here, like whatever. It's like a completely different watching and
For sure.
experience.
I'm sure you were paying attention to an extent, but like there are some really cool and interesting conversations that go on between hitters, or even like hitters and pitchers during like, like if somebody asks a pitcher who's on the bench, like, hey, like, why did he throw me that there or whatever? Or if it's two hitters that are talking about what Efross or what Dakota is doing, like, hey, like I'm seeing something with this dot on his slider, and I don't know if you were able to either. I mean, it's tough when you're kind of staying out of the way and you're not a hitter to like pay attention to these conversations. But were you able to catch on to anything that you weren't either expecting or kind of the vibe throughout the World Series in the dugout?
I think, yeah, you kind of like you said, you kind of have conversations that you wouldn't normally have. With like, I mean, like I try to talk to hitters all the time to like say like, hey, would this pitch work or whatever? Like you talk to your catchers, like kind of the same guideline, but had some really great conversations with DJ and John Birdie, like just kind of about that, where like you're going pitch for pitch with a guy. It's like a big moment. Like, I think he's going to throw this here. Or like, he's been trying to go the other way, like the entire series, stuff like that you kind of like pick up on because you're watching a lot, like physically closer to it. So yes, definitely. Like there's 100% those conversations that I don't really experience because again, like I'm sitting in the bullpen, however far away. And you're talking about, it's just like all of us together, it's like everybody's in the same boat down in the bullpen versus you go to the dugout, you got position players, you got starting pitchers, you have relievers who are not on the roster. Like it's kind of like you get different perspectives that you wouldn't normally get.
What do you say to those? Not me. I would never say this to you, but what do you say to
You've
those
never said
guys?
anything in your life.
What would you say to those guys that may have mentioned after the team went down 2-0 that like you being in the dugout could be an issue? What do you say to those? I would never say that, but if someone were to say that.
Yeah. The fans were on me pretty good. They saw me at home. They said, hey, get this guy out of the dugout.
You should have seen our group messages behind your back. If that was the case.
Change things up. So no, I think you kind of like ride the like if you're not playing, you ride the superstition wave a little bit. Like, hey, I'm going to go change my hoodie right here.
100%.
I changed shoes for game 4. So that was
something like, I had seeds in the 6th inning yesterday and we scored 3 runs. Like I need to get some seeds going. Like they're going to get us some. Like I was the worst with that if I was addicted to that. Like,
and it was like
you guys should try being a hitter.
I could never.
No.
God bless.
No. It was the first game at home was the coldest game of the 3 that were there. So like you kind of needed your jacket on, everything, but the other 2 were like you can kind of like get away with just a hoodie. So I was literally like, do I wear a hoodie? Do I go t-shirt here? Do I go long sleeve and a hoodie? Like where are we at in the lineup? Like, do I need to switch it up? So yes, you're 100% playing those games. And Dakota, like I don't want to listen to the outside noise or whatever. I'm just trying to do the best thing I can do for the New York Yankees to bring us a W. So but yes,
don't listen to those people. They don't know what they're saying.
But people are also saying,
who are these people, Zach?
No, just the people. Listen.
Zach's got an ear to the streets at all times.
And they were saying the game that I went to was the only game you guys won, right?
See, but that's, if anything, we have beef. I have beef with you over that because I told you have to go to the next game because if you care about Scott and him getting a World Series ring, you would have found a way. I know you had other plans, you had prior engagements, but I got beef with you on that. You had pictures.
Zach also sent a text during game 5 that has haunted me ever since then. And I think he knows. I think he knows what it was.
Zach.
What was it?
I don't remember.
We were talking. It was 5-0, and Judge almost hit that ball out. And I think was that the 4th. That would have made it like 7-8-0. And I just said, I was like, man, feels like we've had a lot of opportunities here to make this like 8-0, 10-0, and bury them. And it just worries me that we haven't done it. And Zach said, no, this is good. You want to keep it close so they use all their pitchers. And I was like,
I was trying to be optimistic, Tom. I'll say it.
I was like, I'm worried about this Dodger lineup. They can get 5 at any moment. And then the 5th inning happened, and
that's on you, Tom. You said 5, specifically 5.
Yeah,
that was the lead.
What?
The lead was 5.
You should have buzzed the dugout phone and said, Scott, go change your shoes or something like that. We got a problem.
Scott, how loud was LA? I mean, that stadium gets loud during the regular season. When my first year, we played the NLCS there, and it gets rocking. But I can only imagine for a World Series just how loud with the sound system and everything.
With the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam too, yeah.
I thought the two coolest parts, like, so I was introduced like at home, and then on the road, we'd all go out there. So like I was on the line, but the anthems, like the first anthems, at each place, like when you're lining up or whatever, they were like baseball like movies. Like you're kind of just like, it's like surreal. Like you're like, obviously you want to be on the team and like helping it out, but like still to be there, like it's a great honor to be a part of such a historic World Series like Dodgers Yankees. Like it's two of, if not the most historic franchises in the sport. So like, especially in like the one in LA, like it's just like we had like a flyover and like the sun setting, and I mean like it's the biggest stadium in baseball. So like after the anthem, like I think it was Brad Paisley who sang it in LA. Ice Cube, yeah, and then we had Fat Joe in New York. Like I don't know, it was just like so much like pomp and circumstance, I guess, like to it, that it was just like, wow, this is it doesn't happen to everybody. So that was definitely really cool. And it was loud in both stadiums. I mean, like, but like, yeah, LA, like it gets on you just because of how you got the extra deck up there, like the speaker systems. Like it was definitely rowdy, but very, very cool.
Is the Dodgers one of the louder? I don't know why, but for me, like watching on TV, I've never been there. I've just always felt like it wasn't that loud of a, I don't know. Like I compare it like Philly. I feel like Philly gets crazy. Like, I don't know. I feel like LA to me on TV, I'm like, I feel like it's not that loud.
They tell you like, hey, pay attention to the speaker system. Like when it starts to get going. Cause like before BP, it starts like very respectable, but like in the outfield, they have like these 12 or huge, like however many huge speakers. And like, it's like, it just goes straight up. And like they say, like, hey, pay attention to like throughout BP and like when it gets closer to first pitch, and then like during the game, it's just like you catch yourself, you're like, man, I can kind of feel this bass just like in my chest.
Yes. The whole
and
stadium
like,
is shaking from the bass.
And it's so Dakota, it's so wide open around the stadium. So like it may sound different on TV, but it also sounds different in person too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, man, this stadium's not in the middle of a city. Like there's not anything echoing it off of, which I'm sure that it kind of sounds a little bit different, but like it's loud, man. It gets loud.
There's like stadiums in baseball, like the domes when they're packed out, like have a different sound because it's just
Texas,
enclosed. Like I think of like Milwaukee or like Toronto, like when it gets loud, it's packed out there. But like as far as like open air stadiums, like I mean, it's the biggest stadium, so it's like, and yes, Zach, you can 100%. Like when they get a base hit or a rally going, like the speaker system is like you can feel it like pounding. So
yeah,
there's definitely that element to it. But yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, just like the experience of it. Obviously not the result, but like the experience of it. Like just thinking, Dodgers, Yankees. I'm able to be a small part of it on the side is was quite cool.
Were you out there for BP?
Yes.
Is one of the craziest things to me on like the big stage like that is, I've never been in a World Series, but in playoff games and All-Star game, the amount of people, the amount of just sheer humans that are on the field during batting practice. It's because both lines, down the lines, there's television people, there's a million reporters that you've never seen before, local, national. There's people from Major League Baseball. There's people from the team. It's just,
and the Ohtani.
Yes.
Media too. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just the sheer amount of humans that would have been on the field for that has to have been ridiculous.
So there was two, I think if not every game, definitely the first one, but there was two TV sets on the third base and like dueling TV sets it was like Fox and MLB Network. MLB Network is, I think, on our side, and then the Fox broadcast is on the Dodger side, and like you can tell me, but like the All-Star game, I feel like it's probably almost more because it's like more of like open and like
show,
yeah, it's like kind of like a show, but like 100%. It was the first game specifically because they had to do media day the day before, so everybody's there, and it's just like, wow, there's like a swarm of people, not even in the stands, just like literally like, I don't even think we could do BP passes because of how much media was and like and officials and everything like that were there.
Yeah, that's why I was pissed at you because you didn't leave me BP passes. You know, and I was like, all right, whatever, like it's fine, but
yeah.
Got it.
I didn't realize that many people were out there for BP. Like, even when I was on the taxi squad and we went to St. Louis, I was like, what are these people? Like, in the World Series, they have people like protecting the TV sets. Like, people pull balls all the time.
The screens.
They put
I was
up,
going to say, like, people can
screens.
get smoked with a ball.
I would venture to say there was probably like down. It probably went down. The MLB Network set was probably halfway to the outfield, and then it wrapped all the way around. And like, there's a good amount of foul territory in LA. 2,000 people. I don't know. Just throwing a number out there. Like, if you said 2,000 people, be like, yeah, like definitely. I mean, just like everybody's trying to get some. And yes, like there was like worldwide media there. Japanese, like the Japanese people covering Ohtani and Yamamoto. A lot of like Spanish speaking publications were there.
There's no place to stretch, and then you feel like if you go to take like a warm up swing or something, like next to the turtle, that you're gonna decapitate someone.
That was probably worse because we were trying to play catch. I'm trying to catch with Tim Hill like in the outfield off of like the gold seats in LA.
Yeah.
Like I'm like I can't see anything. There's people behind me, like there's like reporters walking by. I'm like, this is a game of like protect yourself versus like catch.
Yeah.
I'm playing goalie.
This episode is brought to you by SeatGeek. If you want to go watch the Yankees play, code compound 10 at SeatGeek. Download the app. 10% off your first order at SeatGeek. Green means good, red means bad. Look for the green deals at SeatGeek. Code compound 10 for 10% off. Scott, where are you in your off-season routine? What are you up to right now? What's it look like? When do you start throwing? Have you started throwing? And this is the first off-season in a few years that you've gone in healthy and had a full off-season to actually get ready. So that's got to be exciting.
Yes, it is exciting. And I actually just listened to your guys' episode with Chris Sale, which was excellent. Shout out Zack for taking the reins on that. He crushed it. But in there, he mentioned like how last off season, like he was healthy for the first time in a while. And like I've definitely thought about that. I haven't had a healthy full off season since entering the 22 season. So yeah, it's definitely I'm very happy to be healthy and just like have a normal-ish off season and feel good kind of heading into it. So I just started my work. We just got back, I guess a couple of weeks ago now, get myself just a week off to kind of just like reset and start getting my lifts and start doing some plyo ball throws. Probably going to pick up a baseball, I think, here next week or so and start tossing and get ready to go because, it's already the end of November, middle to end of November. So
it comes fast. I mean, yeah, you just finished.
Yeah.
You just finished 3 weeks ago.
And it's like, I was like, I wasn't pitching during that time, but you're mentally trying to stay locked in case something happens. And you're also throwing lives and sides and everything. So it's like, I kind of got like a little bit of like a mini deload, I guess, because like the whole month I wasn't like, throwing at 100% intensity, like in games and everything. It didn't have that like wear and tear, but like for those guys, I mean, like all of them that like threw like nearly every game, like that's an extra 5 weeks, I guess, necessarily. Like, it's like, you got to like almost like wipe it clean and like enjoy a little bit of time, but you kind of got to get right back into it because spring training is already,
that's a crazy. That really is a crazy thing when you said like, yeah, I took a week off and I'm going to start throwing again next week. It's like people don't understand. Like, Garrett Cole had basically he got hurt a little bit to start, right? But like he just stopped throwing 2 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Like, hey, he just start ramping up again, Garrett, and it's like,
yeah, like the starting pitching routine has got to be like crazy different too, because like theirs is just a longer like runway they need for a reliever. Like, you want to give yourself enough time to be ready to go, but you're not going to be built up to X amount of pitches to be ready for camp. So
will they take it easier on starters that go to the playoffs in spring? So like in spring, will they say like, hey, instead of ramping up like your usual, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pitches, like, will they say, hey, you're either not going to throw for the first few weeks or you're really going to have a deload in spring?
I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure they like have them like work. I'm sure it like ends up working the same, but you probably just throw less times in spring training. Like, you're not pitching the fourth or fifth game and the end of February, like when games get going, like you normally would, you'd probably throw more towards the back end. So I think that's kind of like what would happen for the starter routine. And like, I think same thing for the relievers, like where maybe you get 6, 7, 8 appearances on your belt in camp. Maybe you get 3, 4 and just kind of like need to bank the rest a little. Like you need to bank on a little bit of downtime in the offseason to give yourself a reason. Because like those pitches those guys are throwing, like it's not normal. Like and like that's like one of the things that like realize when you're just watching, it's like they're not normal pitches. Like they're like, you don't want to make too much of the moment. And I'm sure like you feel better like doing it. Like for me, like I'm on the sideline, like I'm like nervous and like you feel better and more in control if you're actually pitching. But like those pitches, I mean, like Luke Weaver was throwing like multiple ups, like back to back days. And like, the Dodgers had guys that were doing it, like Cleveland had guys that were doing it in their series. So it's like these pitches matter like almost like so much more than it's just like they're like graded at a different level that like it's not like you're just throwing like normal regular season pitching and like rolling with the normal routine. So there's that element as well.
I wonder if any of like the starters, the relievers can still afford to take some time off because they don't have to build up as much. Like, I wonder if any starters just keep throwing, like obviously super light intent, like 60 to 90 feet, like just moving your arm just so when it is time to ramp up, it's like, all right, like we don't have to do that 2-week, like super light on ramp. Like we can kind of get things going a little sooner.
There's definitely that school of thought. I feel like with a lot of like, regardless of whether you go to the playoffs or not, just like keeping your arm moving like constantly versus like taking like the time off. Cause it's almost like every day you take off, you need like 2 days to build back more or something like that. So we
would at Drive On, we used to do like for every week of non-throwing, it's 2 weeks of on-ramping.
That's like kind of the standard, that's like almost like a rehab program too. It's like, all right, like
1 to 2,
you're on like you're on the 15 day and it's like, all right, like you're no throw for a week, but you're going to end up probably like having to throw for like 2 weeks plus, rehab games or something like that. So like everything kind of gets drawn out. So yeah, I don't know. Like starting routines are interesting to me too, because I haven't been a starter in professional baseball, but like how many times are you getting off the mound? How many pitches are you throwing in your bullpens? Like, because you have to like work that, like that's like a whole different, and like you have to be preparing yourself to throw a bunch of pitches right out of the chute potentially. Have you ever done like the consistent throwing in any offseason? Like even when you switched arm slots, like did you just keep throwing or have you always taken some time off? I would say the most I threw was probably either the 20 into 21 season. I think I threw pretty consistently, or at least like gave myself less of a time off. But I've kind of come to like think like the plyo ball routine, like just to like keep your arm moving, because like a lot of that stuff you can do is just like teaching your arm like different throwing pattern or like, consistent throwing patterns, but like you're not putting like the mileage on it, like through like X amount of throws in a workload. So I think there's definitely benefit to that. And I'm sure Dakota, you can speak to that as well. Like from where you were at with Driveline, like keeping your arm moving to some extent, it has its benefits, whether that's through shoulder work or plyo balls or just continuing to throw versus like just sitting there and doing nothing. And some guys do that. Like some guys find, a lot of veteran relievers I've been around say like, hey, I'm not picking up a baseball till, January. January sometimes it's like, hey, like I'm preparing myself. I know my body, like I'm going to come into camp ready to go, but I got to prepare myself to throw 70, 80, 90 times,
that is the
next
weird
offseason. So
that is the weird one of like, I always wasn't sure of like, how much time should I take off? Like when should I start throwing? But like you said, as long as you're ready for like, especially myself and then Scott trying to earn a spot, like back in the Yankees bullpen, like I was always trying to earn a spot here or there. Like, as long as you're coming in ready to go, like I would always make sure like, all right, I'm going to camp February 14th. Like I'm ready to throw lives February 14th. Like if they tell me I got batters, like I'm good to go. Yeah. And that's where like everyone's different of how they choose to go about getting ready for that.
Yeah. And definitely for me in like my position, like I'm like, I haven't been, I pitched for 4 months this offseason, but the better part of 2 years, I haven't been healthy. So like I'm definitely wanting to come into camp, feeling really good and kind of like ready to go. So I think that's definitely, where
without overdoing it, that's where like the fine line of shooting the gap of like, all right, like I don't need you throwing 12 bullpens and 3 live ABs before spring training, but like, as long as you're ready, once you get there, that's like shooting that gap.
Yeah, for sure.
Ian, that's you too, right? You're ready to go day one of spring?
Ready to go, man. Ready to fire it up. Good to
Ian,
go.
Ian, how do you treat? Because Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but Zach, you hit the whole
Zach
offseason.
hits nonstop.
No, I
Zach
don't.
Zach sleeps with a bat in his hands.
But you hit more. And Ian, you hit the entire offseason?
No, come on.
Hell no, he yells at me for hitting.
Okay, that's
Scott,
what I thought.
come
That's
on.
what I thought. I like because you take some time off as well. Like what's kind of the logic behind both?
I took
both
time
stuff
off too. Everybody takes time off for the most part.
Zach, are you yelling at us?
I am, because it's nonsense.
Asking.
I think, but hitting's also very different. Before I let Ian answer, sorry. Hitting's very different in that, like, yes,
Hitting is
it's like
stupid
stress
is
on
what
your
it
body.
is.
Yes, but I'm saying, like, hitting is something you can take 1,000 swings a day. Like, if we throw 1,000 baseballs, our arm's done. Like, you can take a lot of swings to where, like, you're not going to damage your body. You might damage your mind and overthink
Just your brain. That's it.
That's what I mean. You might overthink it, but like you can take the swings and work on things any time of the year and it's fine.
Zach puts one of those Guardian caps on when he's hitting 1,000 times in the off season.
Well, I guess we'll go into Hitting Corner, brought to you by Bruce Bolt. BruceBolt.us. My batting gloves, Zach's batting gloves. BruceBolt.us. Scott loves a good Bruce Bolt arm sleeve.
My batting gloves.
Dakota.
Love
BruceBolt.us for all of your baseball needs. Perfect time of year to get the Bruce Bolt stuff for the offseason. My offseason routine is always like 2 weeks down and then start the body moving again and then get into I kind of started my first power phase 2-3 weeks ago of actually like working out. Kind of November 1st is a good barometer for me on when I get into like the full power stuff, start building out. But I won't hit until, usually I go back to Chicago right around the holidays. So that's kind of the first time that I'll pick up a bat and start to hit and get back into that. But I'm doing bat speed stuff. I'm doing swinging movements and working on rotational stuff. But actually bat the ball usually around the holidays, and I have before in my career hit the whole off season, especially when I was younger. It's kind of been a no for me. That I just really, when I've done that and I've continued to hit and hit and hit, I feel like when I get to spring training, I end up just wiping everything and like starting again, because you're actually getting a ton of arm, you're getting the cage stuff, you're getting on field, you're starting to see live, and then all the stuff that kind of you were doing in the off season feels like, what was I doing? That's been my experience.
Yeah.
And so I've started, as I've gotten later and later in my career, to just bat speed stuff, getting some bat to ball, kind of that month of January, so that when I get to spring, I can really build it out. I'm not sore. I don't want to be sore from swinging when I start doing it in spring. So I want my body to be ready to actually do the motion, but all the little things and getting the swing back and getting the feels back for me is the first 2-3 weeks of spring.
I think we've talked about it before, but with Scott here too, like the key difference is like Ian has the comfortability of knowing like I'm going to be in the opening day lineup, like 99.9% sure of that. So like he can come in and kind of like work his way into spring to where like Zach, Scott, like you got to go in there like ready to go of like I'm ready to compete right now and like earn my spot. So Ian just has that comfortability of like, I'll be all right. Like if I'm ready by March, like we'll be fine. Or like April. But yeah,
the one thing that's been different for me in the last couple of years that I've really noticed is the running and the running volume and throwing.
I feel that running, like going from an off-season training program to like just like playing outfield and running the bases has to be almost a bigger jump than hitting in the off-season to hitting in spring training and then throw, like, because like there's no real way to simulate that in the off-season. Like you can't play baseball in the off-season, like unless you're playing winter ball.
I mean, dude, that first double or like extra long like run that you have to get into is like you're standing on the base and you're like, there's no way that like this should be that hard to run 180 feet, but obviously it's the first week of whatever you're doing, but it is, and that's a really good point. It is way different. Like as soon as you can start to get in the competition, obviously, and then running, close to 100%, especially like Dakota alluded to, like if you're in my position, like I don't really have a rep that I can really take off, which is almost, it's a beauty, it's a blessing and a curse where it's like, okay, like I'm going to try to be in game ready as early as I can. But then it's also like you got to be in game ready as early as you can. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Zach, last year you had a lot of success in spring training. Does that give you like more confidence this offseason, knowing like, hey, like last year you made the team basically because you had a great spring training, and knowing that like I did that and I can go do that again now?
Yeah, but that spring training feels like 5 years ago, just how this year was. Like, yeah, I mean, that was the most success that I've had in spring. And spring's hard. Like, you either, I've seen guys get out to a crazy hot start in spring and then have a bad year, or the opposite where you can't hit water and then you first game of the year you get 3 homers.
I feel like spring is for hitters. There's really typically no in between. Like you either are hitting 400 or you're hitting 100. Like it's
100%.
Crazy. Yeah.
But I was happy. Yeah, Tom. Like with the spring that I had last year it was good because I made some hitting changes, and to kind of see it where again I didn't have the luxury of waiting a few weeks to really get into it. I took a lot of stock in some early live BPs, and then it took me about 2 games to really put it all together and find what I was working on in the off season and how to apply it into live BP or live game situations. I don't know if it gives me a sense one way or another, because you would like to think that you can do that whether it's a regular season or in spring. But I mean, that was high leverage for me, and obviously it was spring training, but I went there out of options. I didn't know what my plan was for them, and like you said, to kind of go in there and win a spot, it didn't really. I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it was great to have belief in yourself and go and do it when your back was against the wall. It meant a lot, but it was also tough to do it. Like going in there day one, like, hey, every single rep that I take has to be with the intent of there are 10 people watching who literally are making decisions day by day, which again, that's kind of how you should approach it anyway, unless, obviously 3-time Gold Glover and All-Star, that you have the luxury of saying like, hey, I'm going to ease into it. But I'm someone who I enjoy practicing, especially when I get down to Florida, Arizona. I enjoy high intensity, whether it's live BPs. I'm trying to treat it as game like as possible. So when I get into a game, it's like, all right, I've been doing this for a week or two now.
What do you think?
Scott's our guest, but I have a quick question off of that. Sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope.
Is there anything this off season, Zach, that you're doing / like changing from last off season to try and like help you have that sustained feeling in the box, or like that's sustained success you had in spring last year? Like, is there anything different you're going into the off season being like, I'm going to do this and like, it'll help me out next year?
Yeah. It's tough to really hold any stock into the season that I have, just because with the lack of reps that I had. In spring I was playing, 2 days in a row, or a day off, day off, where it was like, okay, I can really take what I'm doing and learn from it. Where the Mets, I played the second game of the year, and then I didn't play for 2 weeks after, even more than 2 weeks. And then, I go to Boston without playing for basically close to 2 weeks. And then I go to Atlanta, I get in there and play right away for about a week or so. But it felt like I was chasing that ghost of what I did in spring, where, the cues weren't cueing at that time where they were in spring. So, and I think spring was a testament to what I was doing in the off season, and it did work. Like I basically from day one until the last day of spring, I was pretty locked into what I was doing, and lefty, righty, two seam, four seam, like I was basically hitting everybody. So I actually got in there a little bit earlier this spring, or this off season, and because I wanted to bottle up what I was doing last year without either the pressure or the sensation of a game, where I could really work on what I was doing last off season and try to bottle that up again, because I truly believe that I had something in what I was doing. And this is basically the first off season where, me, like I'm not just completely axing everything that I tried to do the year before, where again, like I said, I was pretty bought into what I was doing in the spring or in the off season. And I'm trying to just find those cues again, basically daily, of what I was working on going into spring last year.
When you're looking for cues, like, can you explain what you mean to the, like, what are you looking for? What are you trying to feel? What are those cues that you're trying to find?
Yeah. So I've always had an issue of falling forward a good amount in my swing. And that's something where I've tried to combat, or Like this offseason, I really wanted to figure out a way to stay back better. And again, going into spring, I didn't face any live. I don't like facing live in the offseason at all. So, the first live EPs, I was like taking stock in whatever I was doing, but I got there about a week or so early, and I would go hit, and I would literally say like, okay, I'm gonna try to stay back today, right? And then it was like, okay, I feel like I'm getting stuck, so let's try a different cue. And it's not even like overhauling everything. It's just like a little cue of like, okay, if I'm trying to stay back and I feel like I'm crashing forward, or vice versa, I'm trying to stay back, or I'm trying to go forward a little bit more, but I'm crashing forward, like, okay, I need to stay back a little bit. And that's what I felt in spring, like the first game. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna stay way back. And I felt like I got stuck. So then the next game, I was like, all right, I'm going to really go forward and try to resist that move as best as I can. And then it felt like I was crashing forward. So I was like, okay, so now I have about 4 or 5 at bats under my belt in game situations where I was like, okay, I felt like I was going each way. So like, how do I meet in the middle there? And it took me until like my third game of like my third at bat where I was like, ooh, like this cue of, say, I forgot what it was. It was like, all right, I'm going to go forward, but I'm also really going to try to resist that, knowing that like my goal is to end up going that way, but I can't let myself do it at the same time. So I really wanted to create this stretch where, same thing if you throw a ball, if I'm going to try to throw it that way, I have to have a recoil of some sort or a coil of some sort. And that was a cue that was really working for me. It was like, my bat was just in the same spot every time, and I felt like I was getting to the same spot, and it was great. And then, when you lose it or when you don't play basically at all, it's really hard for you to do it. And then when you get in there, you're trying to find all these cues that you had from a month ago that were working, and then all of a sudden you feel like you don't even know where your left leg is.
Is that like hip shoulder separation you're talking about, of like everything's kind of going all at once, or is it more like, so like you're trying to delay the upper half but still
but like
half
you want it to be, for me, in my opinion, like you want it to be one fluid motion. You don't want like land and then create this thing which it takes too much time. But yes, basically it's like
that's where hitting and pitching is very similar.
Very similar. Yeah. I want it to be, like a bow and arrow where it's like, all right, I'm pulling it back as best as I can. I'm stretched. I'm ready to go. And then when I want to swing, I just let it go. And that's my decision. My decision if I'm swinging, not like when I'm swinging, like, all right, all I have to do, like as the pitch is coming in, I'm stretching. And then all I have to do is decide if I want to swing or not. Obviously it's way harder than that, but that's kind of
simplifying. The biggest difference between hitting and pitching is that, pitching, you're trying to recreate the same thing every time or the same feel every time. And hitting, it's so reactionary. So you're trying to get yourself to a place. Like I'm trying to get myself to a position that I feel like I can launch, or I feel like I can cover the majority of the strike zone reacting to pitches, or I can take and not swing at pitches, versus that the feeling of getting crashy is like, I'm going to be overcommitted and I'm not going to be able to lay off the stuff I want to lay off. And the feeling of being too much in the back seat or stuck feels like you can't fire. Like that's when you get to a place where you see a pitch that you want to hit and you don't swing. And that took, 0.4 of a second. And then after that you go, oh, why didn't I swing at that pitch? Well, I was stuck. My body wouldn't let me fire at it. So it's that balance of how do I get to the same place every single time where I feel like I'm in a strong position to launch and I can make good decisions. Sounds simple. It's
like how do I back the mound up? It's 60 feet 6 inches, but you guys are throwing it from 55 feet, or Dakota, you're throwing it from basically 50 feet. Like, how do I back Dakota Mekkes up? Like, how do I move him back and give myself the most room for error? Where again, I've had that issue of crashing way forward. Like, if you just think about it logically, it's like, okay, I am literally making Dakota's release point at 52 feet, 53 feet. And then I'm going even more by crashing forward. Now I'm making it 50 feet, and then I'm really in trouble. Why he's throwing 92, 94 with plays up to 96, 97, and you're cutting it down by 3 more feet. Like, go get him,
Scotty, I got a question for you, similar to like the feels of hitting. After TJ and back surgery, and like going through that. I know we talked about like feeling comfortable again, just letting the ball rip and like letting yourself be an athlete and not think like, ooh, is my arm okay? Is my back like that kind of feeling and thoughts? Do you feel like towards the end of the year, like you were able to get back to that comfortability of like, all right, I'm just going to let it eat. I know I can get people out.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably the last 2 months or so, I got to that point. But yeah, it definitely took, all of the rehab process, all of the rehab games, even beyond that to feel, I still didn't feel like myself fully because like, you're just kind of like riding the wave of the season. And I'm hoping that you can kind of take this time off and rebuild yourself and be ready to go for spring training to kind of get back to like, all right, like I'm healthy and like I can let it rip. Like first time being healthy in 2 years, like, have a good off season, like everything, like all the, like check all those boxes and be ready to go. But yeah, it definitely took 100% took me, the better part of the rehab games and then into that to where like I almost had like one outing where I like pitched and I'm like, oh yeah, like everything before that I was just like like I was pitching but like I didn't feel like my normal self just because you haven't done it in year and a half plus. So, and honestly, to Zach's point, like just like completely off topic, but like that bow and arrow example, like Garrett has talked a lot of like about pitching, like using that example. So like the similarities of like what you were saying there. And like, that's actually an interesting point that I kind of hadn't heard. Like I understand like the concept of staying back, but trying to, when you're facing a pitcher, like where they're releasing it, like if they're a lot closer to you, like that's just less reaction time. So like how much can you stay back instead of like crashing forward? So that kind of like actually
100. It's the same. It's in my opinion, it's very similar pitching, hitting, like golf. Like golf is the same thing. It's like you're winding something up to let it go, and it's very similar, just on a different plane.
I was just gonna say I didn't want to bring up golf because I felt like that was obnoxious of me to be like, yeah, it reminds me of my golf swing. But I do think the biggest thing I struggle with in golf is like there are days that you have those cues and your swing feels good and you feel like you're in rhythm. And then I'm like, oh man, I figured this out. And then the next time I'll go play, I'm spraying it all over the place, and I'm like, I can't find it. You're trying, like it's that searching feeling of like,
now do that.
I know I can do this,
but now do that with
I've seen I can
full
do
bottle
it.
of Parse in your bag.
Well, I was gonna say now do that with like Garrett Cole throwing you fastball, slider, change. Like now do that with the ball moving.
Imagine that with drinking an entire bottle of Parse and someone's throwing the golf ball at you, Tom.
Yes,
but that
wait. No one's playing on Parse. Let's clear that up. Nobody here drinks Parse.
Except for Dakota on the golf course.
Tom, that's a really good point, really quick. Like
responsibly.
It's changing every day. And for me, like I knew I wasn't playing. And you have BP every day and it's optional basically. And they come up to you and say, hey, do you want to hit? And it's nobody's fault but my own. But like I don't want to hit BP every day. I haven't played in a month, and I'm gonna make all the pitchers and other position players shag my BP, where it's like, all right, what am I trying to figure out right now? I haven't played in 3 weeks. Am I going to make everybody else shag? It's like, again, it's nobody's fault but my own, where it's like, okay, in spring, you're hitting BP every day. You're doing extra work. And then where I would just do my routine in the cage or get ready during the game. But like, and when like subconsciously you don't have it. And then it's like, oh man, like, this is tough. You really do have to fake it. And on top of that, you haven't seen a live pitch in 4 weeks. Like, it's kind of tough.
You kind of alluded to it. What I wanted to say like 20 minutes ago.
Thanks for speaking up.
Honestly impressive by me that I remembered it this whole time and listened to the conversation. So good by me.
Hats off. Nice
no, I just wanted to, like Zach kind of alluded to it. Like obviously a challenging season for you, like didn't play up to the standard that you set for yourself, and we all know that you can play to. But like, I just want to say, like, going back to the Sale episode you guys just did, like how like much he like respected you, and like you guys had a good rapport. Like that goes a long way, and like you not playing up to your standards, but still being a tremendous teammate for 3 different organizations throughout the season, like definitely means a lot. And I just thought that was really cool that he was willing to come on because we were that close, and you made an impact in his season this year. So I thought that was pretty special. So
no, I appreciate that. It's tough, man. It's again, we've talked about it before. It's hard to put your either success or failures. It's obviously in your head throughout the whole year, but we've talked about it before. It's when you're done playing or when you're playing, it's hey, how did Scott Effross hold his slider? How did he hold his sweeper? It's like no. Like, what do you got on Scotty? Like, how was he? That's kind of the first question anybody asks whether you're going to a different team. Where I knew the situation I was in, and if I wasn't a good teammate, I don't think many teams would be sticking their neck out for me to try to get me in their locker room. And
Definitely.
That is something the Braves really pride on. Where it's like, all right, can this guy handle not playing and still not sulking and trying to be the best teammate as he can be? And you got to do a lot of soul searching in that time. And again, it's not like it was a chore to cheer for the Braves or cheer for Chris Sale.
I will say, Zach, I'm not tooting my own horn, but when I look back at my playing career, that is something I take pride in, that I was like, I feel like I was a great teammate.
100%.
Like, I was fun in the locker room, like kept it light. And that is, like you said, that's huge, especially for like winning baseball teams. Like, you need that. You can't have a guy that goes out there, gets shelled, or a guy that goes 0 for 4 and then he's like crying in his locker. It's like, that's not going to help anybody.
100%.
The last thing I wanted to say about the Sale podcast, just because I thought it was really cool and like he seems like an awesome dude, but if my timeline is correct, he said he like basically switched his arm slot during summer baseball in college.
Yeah.
Correct? After his freshman year.
Playing
and I'm
in the
assuming he
Northwoods
got
League,
drafted as a junior, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he changed his arm.
He was in the big leagues 2 years after. He's just like you.
No, the fact that he did that so quickly and was like put himself in a position to be a first rounder or early pick.
But you changed your arm slot and you're in the big leagues in 2 years. Same as him.
Well, yeah, but like I'm saying, like his.
I think Sale was in the big leagues the same year he got drafted.
That's what I mean. But he changed his arm slot
what,
like 2 years before that. That's the key, kids. Change your arm slot.
I'm just saying, I heard that. I heard him talk about that, and I'm like, that is like jaw-droppingly impressive from an athletic standpoint to like repattern your arm slot that quickly and then get to the big leagues within 24 months or whatever it was. Like that's and dominate. Like,
I mean,
dominate.
Scott.
Shocking.
You're literally telling your own life story. This is what you did.
This is why he's trying to do it.
No, I'm not knocking you for it. I'm saying you made a more drastic change. Like, you went from over the top to straight sidearm. Sale went from like higher arm slot to low 3/4. Like, yes, gross and like a big change, but I mean, you did the same thing and you made it to bigs in 2 years.
You're better than he is anyway.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Where's my Gold Glove? Can I borrow an, Ian?
Yeah, whatever you need.
All right.
Let's get the people the Sloan screen time. Scotty, you've been unbelievable as always. I know we didn't get to a Scotty fan question, but maybe you can submit one, for next week. Just let us know.
You should try hosting someday, Scott.
We're doing today's, not yesterday's.
I have.
Sloan is the world's leading manufacturer of commercial plumbing systems. They're at the forefront of the green building movement and provide smart, sustainable, and hygienic restroom solutions by manufacturing water-efficient products, including flush meters, faucets, sink systems, soap dispensers, and fixtures for commercial, industrial, and institutional markets worldwide. To learn more, visit sloan.com. What are your screen times
When
from
you
yesterday?
stumbled on manufacturing, me and Zack both like peeked up and we're like, oh.
I just thought you had too much Parsa in that mug you got going on.
What is
We're
your
doing
Sunday
today's.
screen time?
We're not doing a
Parse out of
Sundays.
Gold Gloves.
We're not doing Sunday screen time. We're doing today's.
I agree.
All right. What's today's? Do you want to do today's? What's today's?
Yeah. 2 hours, 52 minutes for me.
Oh, 2:58.
Let's go.
I got 2:47.
Dakota, what was your screen time from yesterday? We just want to know, just for research purposes.
I don't want to say it because I told you before, I like to look at all the stats going on.
All right.
So I look at the play-by-play.
How about this? Over under 10 and a half hours.
Taking over.
Way over.
Okay.
13:34. All right, there it is. 13:34,
Wow.
folks.
Wow.
Over half
That's
the day, my phone
exceptional.
was on.
Mine's so
is
high.
exceptional.
Mine's so high because mine leaked into my yesterday leaked into
Today.
after 12.
Too much Parsley last night. You're up.
No,
late.
I was watching that game and I'm like trying to figure out like I need Herbert to have a couple more points, like to feel really good about tonight. So yeah.
Ian, what's your screen time? Ian hasn't gotten to see.
2:33 for me. That was 2:33. 2:33 for me. That's episode
Tom, is yours not working? I'm
3:33
guessing.
today, yep.
Yes, his anniversary is
343.
today,
Mine's
Zach.
343 for me.
Ooh.
Episode 234 of the Compound Podcast presented by Parse Rum. Thank you, Scotty
Of course.
Effross, for coming on, and we will see you next week.